If you don't like something, there is nothing you can do about it. You just can be
sad or quiet and just go home and try to forget about it.
Because sometimes as a foreigner you don't really have many rights to talk. You need to just keep everything in yourself and smile like nothing bothers you. Welcome to my channel. If you're new on my channel, I'm Jenny. I was living in China for 5 years and I recently moved to Taiwan. I've been here for 4 months. And today I would like to talk about my personal view of life here compared to my life in China. I'm really happy that I experienced life in China before and now I moved here, so I see quite a number of differences. And this is my personal experience and my personal point of view, and I would like to share about them today. The cost of living I'm going to divide into different parts, and I would like to start from groceries. I used to do groceries in China once a week because I didn't like going to the shops every day, so I could buy a lot of things at once. And I used to buy things like chicken, fish, vegetables, and I was going to the market most of the time to buy vegetables because it was much cheaper. And I was spending about 500 RMB every time I did groceries. It doesn't include any Western stuff because Western products in China were super expensive. Every time I could go to the Western shop, I would spend about 1000 RMB, which is quite a lot. Here in Taiwan, I also do groceries once a week and I buy almost the same stuff in the market. I also managed to go to buy Western products because Western products here are quite affordable. The prices are really reasonable, that's why I was really happy about it, and I can spend 1000 NTD including Western stuff too. Many general stuff in China are really cheap, especially if you shop online. There is an app which is called Taobao, so when you open it you start looking at these things and you find them very cheap. So when I was shopping I could spend a lot of money just by being attracted. Some things were so cheap that I wouldn't check the quality of it, or I would do mistakes, and whenever I received the package I would be very disappointed, or when I don't see that that product was not original, I could start having some allergies. For example, if you want to buy a toothpaste or cosmetics, sometimes it's really difficult to differentiate the original product. In Taiwan, when I go to the shops, I easily buy stuff without any doubts that it can be a good product. In China, there are also a lot of good products. It's just you need to have a skill, or you need some time to get to know how to choose things online, I guess. In China, it's illegal to work as a student. You cannot do any part-time jobs. You have to be only focused on your studies and you cannot do anything else. But in Taiwan, they support you if you want to work. You just need to get the work permit, which is really a good thing because here even universities will provide for you a job if you need it. According to what I hear from my friends and according to my research, the most paid job in Taiwan is a teaching job. I noticed that salaries for English teachers in China are a little bit higher than it is in Taiwan, especially if you are a native speaker. But of course, there are also some hidden expenses which you might not see at first. You still need to try to live a humble life in order to save money. I stayed in Xi'an city, which is quite bigger than Taichung, but in Xi'an we had limited number of Western restaurants. There were not so many. In Taiwan there are Western restaurants almost everywhere, especially when you open Uber. You see a lot of options of different Western restaurants. In China there is something that's called Waimai. When you open it you just see a lot of beautiful pictures of Chinese restaurants, and it's really hard to recognize which one is Western and which one is not. In Taiwan, if you go to have a brunch, for example, you can spend about 500 NTD per person, but in China, if you go alone to the Western restaurant, you can spend about 200 or 300 RMB. Some cities in China are really expensive, that's why the price of the apartments is also very high. But I was staying in Xi'an, which was really affordable city and not so expensive for living. I was spending the same amount of money in China for the rent. The city is here. Here I'm paying only for the room and the bathroom. In China I was living in a bigger house and could just have a living room, a bedroom and a kitchen, or have a big studio apartment. Bills in China were a little bit expensive for water, electricity and property management because you pay separately from your rent, but here it includes everything into rent except electricity. In Taiwan, electricity is really expensive. We spent about 2,500 NTD per 3 months because we used AC a lot, and we moved here during summer. It was so hot that you can't stand it. There is the same system of renting an apartment as it is in China. Like if you want to rent an apartment, you need to pay in advance for 3 or for 6 months, and then you need to have an agency fee and pay for the deposit. In China, I was spending about 300 RMB for the transportation, and I was taking a bus or a subway. But in Taiwan, the good thing is that students don't have to pay for the bus or for MRT. There is 10 kilometers for free, so you can easily take any bus and move around the city. The only disadvantage is that transportation here sometimes is very slow. When you wait for the bus, you have to wait for too long. When the weather is hot, it's really hard to wait for it. Streets and buildings in China look really advanced. There are a lot of tall buildings. You see that people really take care of the appearance of the city and they want everything to look beautiful. There is always a construction going on, and whenever you go to some places, you see that they are fixing something or building something. They can build something very fast. For example, in Xi'an, where I stayed, they were building new subway lines every year. Also, sometimes when you go to one place and after a week you go to the same place, you might find something different about on the same place where you visited, because they can change it so quickly. In Taiwan it's a little bit different. Here you can find a lot of old buildings, and maybe the infrastructure might not be so super advanced as it is in China. As I heard, here buildings are not so high because there are earthquakes happen quite a lot. I also experienced the earthquake yesterday, which was quite serious, and I was really scared. I was just looking at my building and I was glad that it's not so high, because if I was living in a higher building I would be more panicking and more stressed. In China also, when you go to the streets, you can find a lot of people dancing, or when you go to the park you find many senior citizens maybe playing cards or playing games, doing some activities like dancing or singing, doing tai chi. In Taiwan I also saw some senior citizens practicing dancing or tai chi, but not so often as it was in China. Doing YouTube in China is really hard because there is no Google access and you have to use VPN, and VPN makes the internet so slow that you get frustrated of using it. But in Taiwan the speed of the internet is just so amazing, and it works perfectly well and it's easy to access any apps. I often used to have challenges in China, and I would say almost every day. So it teaches you to be more patient. If you don't like something, there is nothing you can do about it. You just can be
sad or quiet and just go home and try to forget about it.
Because sometimes as a foreigner you don't really have many rights to talk. You need to just keep everything in yourself and smile like nothing bothers you. I would say my life in China was very interesting around 2017, 2018, but after that things started changing and everything started becoming expensive. A lot of foreigners, my friends, started leaving because of COVID, and then later English schools started closing and then lockdowns, so there were so many things around which could put a lot of pressure on me. Life in Taiwan during COVID is much easier, it's more chilled and relaxed because people here don't really like putting pressure on anyone. They don't like to bother people, which is really a good thing. Here people don't really ask me much where I'm from as it was in China, because whenever they ask me in China where I'm from and I say my country, they just don't believe me because they say
I look exactly like Chinese
because of my Asian appearance, and it could annoy me, but there's nothing I could do about it. And here in Taiwan, anybody I guess can tell that I'm a foreigner. I don't have to prove myself and explain that I'm not a local, that I'm a foreigner, which really makes my life here easier.